The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. There was a wedding at Cana in Galilee. The mother of Jesus was there, and Jesus and his disciples had also been invited. When they ran out of wine, since the wine provided for the wedding was all finished, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." Jesus said, "Woman, why turn to me? My hour has not come yet." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." There were 6 stone water jars there, meant for the ablutions that are customary among the Jews. Each could hold 20 or 30 gallons. Jesus said to the servants, "Fill the jars with water," and they filled them to the brim. "Draw some out now," he told them, "and take it to the steward." They did this. The steward tasted the water, and it had turned into wine. Having no idea where it came from, only the servants who had drawn the water knew, the steward called the bridegroom and said, "People generally serve the best wine first, and keep the cheaper sort till the guests have had plenty to drink. But you have kept the best wine till now." This was the first of the signs given by Jesus. It was given at Cana in Galilee. He let his glory be seen, and his disciples believed in him. The Gospel of the Lord. Have you ever come across what's called a triptych? It's a particular kind of painting, quite often on wood. And what's special about a triptych, it's in fact 3 pictures in one. Quite often there's a central picture, and then on hinges they've got sort of 2 doors on the sides, and the 2 doors are painted with other pictures. And they all relate to some mystery that's united together. So you might have, say, in the middle a picture of the crucifixion, and on the door on the right you might have, well, that's your left, the door on one side might be, say, the burial of Jesus in the tomb, and then on the other side you might have a picture of the resurrection. So it'll all be part of the Paschal mystery. One sort of picture, but in 3 parts. The triptych. Well, the fathers of the church, that's the teachers, early bishops of the church, going right back into, say, the 2nd century AD, saw in last Sunday and the Sunday before and this Sunday's Gospels a triptych, not actually painted, but in words. The one mystery is the theophany, the revealing of God. So we had 2 Sundays ago was the Epiphany. So God was revealed, Jesus, to the wise men who offered him most especially the gift of incense, showing his divinity, and they worshipped him. So God was made known to the Gentile world. Then we had last Sunday was the baptism of the Lord. And in that mystery we hear the voice of the Father saying, "This is my beloved Son." And so God himself, the Father, is identifying Jesus with himself. He shares his divinity, he's part of the same family of God. Jesus is his Son. So there's a revelation of divinity in that. And then in Jesus' first miracle at Cana, which we've just heard today, we have the final part of this triptych, 3 images of the one mystery, in which Jesus lets his glory be seen. So people see through this wonderful miracle of changing water into wine, they see something of the divinity of God, that God at least is working through him, and in fact he is glorious himself because he's God. So this mystery of the changing water into wine is important for us, not just because it's one of the miracles, it's the first of the miracles. It's in John's Gospel, where we don't have many miracle stories compared with the other Gospels, Matthew, Mark and Luke. As always, it's a good idea to cut out from your bulletin the Gospel passage and put it by your shaving mirror or in your purse or wherever it is, and read it throughout the week, or maybe just look at it a little bit. And there's loads in here that we might think about and help us to pray and help us to deepen our relationship with God. The first person that we're presented with who's named is Mary, Jesus' mother. And it's through her instigation that this miracle is worked about. Jesus was saying, my hour hasn't come yet. He's not ready to perform miracles, but Mary knows what he can do, and she sees that the people are in need, and so she tells them to do whatever he tells them to do what Jesus tells them to do. So we have first of all a reminder of the importance of Our Lady. She doesn't take the place of God, but she can lead us to him, she can guide us, and sometimes she gives us the advice that she gave to the stewards, which was, do whatever he tells you. This might apply to our general vocation in life, priesthood, married life, religious life, or whatever. It also applies in just our day-to-day life. What am I going to do today? How do I develop my relationship with God? What does he want of me today? And we might ask Our Lady that same question every morning. Help me to do whatever he tells me to do today, to leave my life with God. It tells us a bit about Jesus as well in this story. They ran out of wine. Well, you might say, well, they just that was rather silly, not catering for enough people. But maybe they were poor and they couldn't afford enough wine. Maybe they're very generous, inviting all their friends, and couldn't really afford to have them all there. And also the fact that their wine that they had, that they provided themselves, wasn't as good as the wine that Jesus provided. Maybe they couldn't afford a very nice wine. But Jesus was happy then to be with the poor. We see that in this mystery, and he wants to give to them. Did you notice the word that Jesus used when he spoke to his mother? I think if any of you ladies here were addressed as woman by your son, you might feel a bit put out. I think my mother would. So what's the significance of this woman? It's used again at the Passion, in John's account of the Passion, when Jesus says from the cross, woman, behold your son, referring to John, and behold your mother, to John. So this woman, the name for Mary that he gives her at the beginning and the end of the Gospel, what's all that about? Well, it goes right back to the book of Genesis. And the woman there is Eve. And she failed. She failed the test, as it were. She turned against God in an act of pride, eating the forbidden fruit and tempting her husband to do the same. But there's a new woman then, the new Eve, who's Mary. And she then brings about the salvation of the world by bringing Jesus into the world. Through her obedience, the sin of Eve and Adam is taken away by Jesus coming into the world. So in this name, calling Mary woman, it's not an insult. He's actually very clearly identifying her with the first woman. And the she is going to put right what the first woman put wrong. In fact, the fathers of the church used to have a pun, a play on words. Ave was the greeting that the angel gave to Mary. And Eva, in Latin, was the name of Eve. And so Mary's name is reversing Eve's name. And so she would reverse what Eve had done. Jesus then says, my hour has not come yet. And we find in reading John's Gospel this idea of his hour, meaning really culminating his glorification on the cross, is the whole thrust of his life. And so in a way his hour is coming about in performing this miracle and letting his glory be seen. And we find out what Jesus does. He tells the stewards to fill these jars, which are used for washing hands rather. He says, fill them up with water, and then they're going to drink it. Probably sounded rather strange, didn't it, to say, we'll use the washing water, and we're going to drink it. Gosh. But they did whatever he told them to do, and they filled these jars with water, right to the brim. And you notice at the end, we hear they've got more wine than they imagined they'd ever need. There's loads left over, a bit like feeding the 5,000. There's lots left over there, 12 baskets full. Here they've got so much left over of this very good wine, which they'll keep for next Sabbath or whatever. And so Jesus is showing in that he's not just going to give them just what they need and that's it. He's got loads to give them. And it's the same with us. We say it's a superabundance of God's grace. There's an abundance of God's grace, but it's even more than an abundance. And so he's telling us in this mystery that whatever we think we need in our life, and we know we need in our life, and we ask for it in prayer, he's got far more than that to give us. So much. So when we read this gospel passage, we might pray that we have this superabundance of God's grace in our life to make us that saint that he's calling us to be, that we can see his glory, and that we might, like the disciples, believe in him.